Imagination, not reason, creates what is novel, says Wendell Castle, a renowned furniture designer. When you walk through the aisles of a store, sometimes certain products fascinate you. The truth is, they were born out of someone's idea or invention. A product goes through many stages before we see it on store shelves. Have you ever wondered how a car, cell phone, computer, TV set, a piece of exercise equipment gets its shape, color, or design? A lot of thought and effort is put into it. If you're thinking about an idea or working on an invention that is functional and beautiful, that you hope becomes a household name, please have your pen and notebook handy. Today, we are going to discuss the stages in product design and manufacturing. Our guest is Ara Boghosian, a mechanical engineer with 22 years of experience in product design. Mr. Boghosian also creates 3D designs and prototypes for inventors. It is great to have you here on the show.
Thank you.
Briefly tell us what you do as a product designer.
Yes, I specialize in designing products, any products that are made out of metal or plastic for small businesses and inventors.
Name some of those products.
I worked on dentist drills. I worked on Whirlpool ovens and refrigerator components. I would design components for those products made out of metal or plastic. And that gave me the background on both design and manufacturing that has led me to now to work with inventors.
Could you briefly describe what we are looking at?
Well, a lot of these products are either 3D printed parts or actual manufactured parts.
What is the name of this product?
That is a cervical traction product, and this one actually is still selling now, very successful. And this is used by physical therapists. And so if you, for example, have any cervical pain, which is the upper part of your spine, or if you get into a car accident and you hit the windshield with your head, it compresses your vertebrae.
You can open this up, right?
That's right, and I'll show you in a minute.
Good.
So what you do is you lay down on this, you put this on the floor or a massage table.
Sure.
And your head is here looking up, your neck fits between the wedges, and you would use this pneumatic pump to stretch and expand. Of course, you wouldn't do it that much because that would hurt a lot, but it would be prescribed by the physical therapist how many pounds of pressure you need to apply to stretch and relieve your vertebrae. And you do that several times a day, a few minutes a day. And as you guessed, there is an adjustable
strap right there.
The strap holds your head in, but right here you have these pinch arms that you use to adjust, just in case you need to make it wider.
Absolutely. So you can adjust it to the size of your neck.
That's right. Whatever feels comfortable for your particular treatment.
Now, who is the inventor of this product?
I'm one of the inventors.
And what I'm curious to know, very briefly, what inspired you to come up with the cervical home?
Yes, the home traction.
Home traction.
Right. Well, this product was basically inspired by the owner of the company. So he came to me with the idea, and the existing product in the market, similar products, were not as comfortable.
Now, the owner of the company, what's the name of the company?
That company used to be called Care Rehab.
Now, at what stage in the invention process does an inventor begin to think about product design? Is it before he gets the patent or after he receives the patent?
Right. Yeah, that's very critical. And that's exactly what I teach at the tech shop is design for manufacturing. I have a lot of inventors that come to me with an idea. And if they had already spent a lot of time and money creating the 3D CAD files without manufacturing into consideration, then they may run into problems because the shape of each component is dependent on how you intend to manufacture it. So it all depends on if you're making the prototype or a small production or mass production. Each level will require a redesign of the shapes.
And that leads me to my next question. The inventor comes to you, he has scaled through the patent search, no one else has that idea. Now, the typical questions you're going to ask him when he comes to you seeking your advice on an ideal design for his invention,
Right.
what are some of those questions you ask him first?
Well, first we discuss basically what the function is. So we want to make sure, for example, this part here, this is an internal component of another medical device. So we would start out by listing all the different components. It's called a bill of material, which is just a list of parts. And the reason why we do that is we want to have an overview of what the whole product requires. How many components, what materials, and how many of them should be manufactured, and how many of them can be purchased already that exist on a shelf somewhere. So we divide up the list of components into those groups. Basically standard components that we don't have to remanufacture. They already exist. They're mass manufactured. Or the other half is new designs and new shapes that we have to manufacture, design and manufacture. So that would be the first step, is to list that. Now, once we have that bill of material and we understand what's required, then we start making cost estimates of how much each part is going to cost. Now, the cost varies on how you're going to manufacture.
Are there ways that you can get an affordable quote and yet not lose anything from the quality of the product?
So yes, that's definitely possible, sure. I mean, it all depends on a designer and a manufacturer you're working with. And manufacturers are just like doctors or any profession. It all depends on their experience. So if you have something metal to be manufactured, you need to be more specific. Is it extrusion, which means something that is stretched out through a certain die, or is it a punched stamp? This is a stamping. So I have a manufacturer that is excellent with this, and whenever I need that type of a method of manufacturing, I know that they're going to give me the best price. I have another manufacturer that does extrusions, so it all depends on what the requirement of the shape is and what method of manufacturing is required.
Now, if you're dealing with a very expensive idea and the inventor cannot afford the manufacturing,
yes.
cannot afford the design,
right?
How do you advise him?
I tell him
what
to
are
play
the options out there for
play the lottery.
Play the lottery.
Yes.
So do not go further until you have funding.
Well, funding is important, and fortunately these days we have Kickstarter and online
GoFundMe,
social funding sites, many different sites to do that. So that actually makes my work easier because they don't have to wait for a bank or venture capitalists. If they have a good idea, I could quickly design it in 3D CAD, and I have 5 3D printers, print a prototype, and as soon as you have a prototype, you could put it online to get funding. So that would be the route to go.
What would you typically charge the inventor for doing a 3D design? I know it would depend on the complexity of the design.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of projects are based on either hourly rate or a project flat fee. But let's say if I was to print this part maybe would cost $30 or $40 to print
per
to
hour,
do a 3D.
Or to do a 3D.
No, the total 3D printing.
Yeah, okay.
The designing of it per hour, or it would be a flat rate. It depends on, like you said, how complex the product is.
How can an inventor find the right industrial designer for his product and also taking into consideration cost?
Right. Well, there are a lot of online sites now that you could find services for industrial design services and CAD services. So I'm listed, for example, on 3D Hubs. Have you heard of 3dhubs.com? Mm-hmm. They connect 17,000 printers all around the world and give 1 billion people access to that many printers within 10 miles of their house, which makes product development very easy. Now, a lot of these people who own 3D printers are also industrial designers, such as myself. So I'm a mechanical engineer and I do industrial design. So the best is to search online, find the reviews, talk to the person, and have them bring the products that they've done before and see if that's the style that you prefer, you enjoy.
For those who might not know, what is 3D design?
Right. So 3D design, basically, we could separate into 3D CAD design and 3D printing, right? 3D printing is actually making a part you could hold from melting the plastic in layers and layers. In order to make a 3D printed part, you have to create a 3D file. A 3D file, and you've seen maybe on the internet, you could take a shape and spin it around and look at all the different sides. So you could take that file and send it to a printer, almost like a 2D printer that you have at home that prints on paper, except it prints many layers. So what you end up with is a part that you could hold.
Certain inventors try to do their design themselves. There are a number of softwares out there, free softwares.
Yes.
Do you recommend that?
Well, yes, it's a good start. The free software is a good start, especially if you want to experiment on the shapes yourself. Now, the free software files are good, but it also depends on how much experience you have designing, right? So for example, someone who creates this part may not know that you need to create these rounded edges to make it easier for manufacturing, or that you have to have angled surfaces, which are called draft, for injection molding. And that's what I teach in my tech shop class, is all these little tips and tricks that actually make your design more manufacturable and less expensive. So you could start with free software, that's fine, but it doesn't mean that you may know all the different little shapes and techniques that you need to include in your design.
Seems like something very detail-oriented.
Yes.
And it could be time-consuming.
Oh, it's very time-consuming if you're not experienced. But if you have a lot of experience, or if you work with someone who has a lot of experience, then they will be able to get all the shapes in and all the requirements in during the design process.
Now, do you take into consideration the competition for similar products, for inventors who are very particular about their product standing out?
Yes. Well, competition, of course, is important, but really the best advice is how well you sell it. So we know that there's a lot of competition for all types of products. Just because the cell phone was invented, it didn't stop more companies to invent newer cell phones, better cell phones. So the best advice I give on that is, a lot of people think that they would need to spend 80% of their time on product development and 20% on sales. It's actually the opposite. And the product design is difficult. It's not easy.
Because you want the product to be catchy, captivating,
Sure.
user-friendly.
Right. So the best way to find out is to design a product and start selling it as soon as you can. Because one of the biggest mistakes that new inventors make is that they try to, in their mind, create a perfect product, which is impossible to do just in your mind.
Well, inventors are typically passionate
That's
about
right.
the idea.
That's
It's like
right.
their baby.
That's right. Well, even if you ask around friends and family, or do a kind of a poll, you're not going to find out what the product needs, what kind of improvements it needs, until you start selling it. When people start paying for it and using it, that's when you're going to get the real feedback. And that's the risk you have to take, is get the product out on market and have good customer service. That's one of the best advice I could give.
Okay. Now, the inventor has decided on the shape, the size, the color of the product. What is the next step?
The next step is to start getting samples made. So once we have gone through the prototype phase and had, because prototypes are not going to be exactly the production shape or production texture. As you can see, this has kind of a different texture on the outside, and this has kind of a dull inside. So this could only be done at actual mass manufacturing. So what we do is, once we order the tool, we make some sample parts. Pilot production, we call it. So we get maybe 50 to 100 pieces and test those out before we order the 5,000 pieces.
Inventors who cannot afford to do the mass production, is licensing an option for them?
That is an option, and there's companies out there, other companies that license products for you. From what I've heard, they're very difficult to work with, because licensing is kind of a difficult process. You need to have a good budget for attorneys and lawyers, and in general, they like to maintain more control, because they're doing most of the work.
But
you're
the
just giving
mass
them
production
idea.
of it is even more work.
It is. They're
more
both
money.
risky. Yes, they're both risky.
But for that new inventor who knows next to nothing about all of these,
Right.
this is their first invention.
Yeah. Well, out of the 23 years that I've been doing product design, just kind of an anecdotal experience, I really haven't met anybody who's had a successful licensing The only successful people I've met are people who take the risk, manufacture product, and start selling it.
Why haven't you met anyone who's had a successful licensing?
That's the point I'm trying to make. They sell. It sounds easy, and everybody has this dream that they're going to come up with an idea and then give it to a license it to Home Depot or a company, and then sit back and collect the money. But I haven't met anybody who's done that.
Why do you think it doesn't work?
I think it's a very difficult process. In most cases, large companies would like to use the idea for themselves. So they could work around your idea, work around your patent. I've heard more situations where they say, oh, we're not interested, and then they come up with something similar.
But I guess before you share your idea with any company, you know, the inventor, a smart inventor, would say, let's sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, and non-disclosure agreements usually last 2 years, 5 years. They're not indefinite. And even if they sign that, it's not going to stop a large company to create a different version, totally legal. You know, even if you have a patent, they'll work around your patent and mass manufacture it themselves.
So I guess the inventor has to do his due diligence by asking around, you know, doing some research about that company.
Yes.
To see if they are reputable before even going there in the first place.
Well, it's not a matter of being reputable or not. I think it's business. And most businesses, when they see a good idea, they want to maximize their profits. So I think that applies to all companies. There's no category of good or bad. The idea of you know, one company being less reputable than another, that may exist and may vary. But in general, to survive, it's very difficult for these large companies to survive. So when they see a good idea, they're going to take it.
Well, what I've read is from those inventors who have been very successful with licensing, companies typically would offer about 5% royalty for each product that is sold. And a reputable company would always keep their word.
Yeah.
And if they sell like 1 million of that product, then that's a good chunk of change.
It is a good chunk of change. Good luck with it.
Okay. So the new inventor comes to you. Now I'm talking about the inventors who have not even obtained a patent for that idea.
Right.
But they're already thinking about the product design.
Right.
And they have to discuss it with you.
Right.
They just have to discuss it with you.
Right.
And
in that case, it's a non-disclosure agreement.
Okay.
And I always sign that with any inventor. And then we discuss the product and list all the different methods of designing and manufacturing it. And then I guide them in what direction they should work with the patent and what shape should be on the patent. And then I usually work with the patent attorney in conjunction with the design process to get the final drawings out.
Now, at what stage do you start thinking about the name of the product and the brand identity?
Right. That I would recommend working with a branding company to ensure that you're not using a name that either sounds wrong or absurd and insulting in other languages, or it's been used, of course, by other companies.
That would have a lot to do with trademark too, doing the trademark
That's
search.
right. Yeah, for example, I had a friend who created an app called Circa, and he spells it with a C, the second at the end.
And there's a restaurant called Circa? Or?
There is a restaurant called, there's several other things, so he had to change that to a Q because he was sent a letter by attorneys that you can't use Circa as a name, so he had to change the spelling. But that was after 1 year of marketing, so he had to redesign and change everything. So it's in that case, you would need, same with a patent search, someone professional to do the patent search or the name branding search to ensure that you're not using something that already exists.
Okay. Now, inventors who can afford to do mass production, a lot of inventors prefer to go to China. Is it because it's cheaper?
Yeah, overseas production is generally cheaper on certain types of components. I don't recommend you do the whole product in one factory anywhere or overseas, because then somebody in that factory could easily copy it and sell it themselves. So for our medical devices, for example, we use 3 or 4 different factories. And some of them were here, domestic, some were overseas. This way, no one factory knows what the final product is, or it would be very difficult to replicate that product. If you were doing the whole product in one place, then it's easy for someone to copy. Even if the people you're working with you trust, there's going to be somebody in the factory.
Even after they've signed the non-disclosure agreement and all the
that doesn't really apply in China.
Documents, somebody can still copy it.
Oh yes.
You can always sue them if you find out. So.
Well, it's difficult to sue companies in China. The one thing you could do is stop them at the border. So if you find out that a Chinese company or any overseas company, any country, there's a lot of different countries now producing products. If they are exporting into the United States your idea, then you could talk with the customs officials to stop that particular type of product. That would be the most practical way to stop it, because it's very difficult to go and very expensive to go all the way there and fight your legal battles.
Okay, the product is ready to hit the market, to hit the store shelves. Is the inventor typically handling the marketing too, or is it the manufacturer, or how does it typically work?
Yeah, well, each case is different. Now, with the medical devices, there were 90 salespeople across the country that would take it to the physical therapy clinics and basically sell through the physical therapy clinics. And there were some online sales. But now with the online social networking and Kickstarter and so forth, I would recommend that would be the most efficient way to sell your products.
I am just thinking about that new inventor who wants, quick returns for his inventions.
Right.
And selling online, it works for some inventors and it doesn't work for others. Some people do better in stores. Right.
Well, with the stores, you would have to talk to the purchasing agent of, let's say, Kmart or CVS, and there's a long application process, and you basically have to convince them that your product could sell, and they would place it on the shelves at their stores. And that is a very difficult process.
It is a difficult, long process for a new inventor.
Yes.
And, we see a lot of ads claiming they can help inventors with their ideas.
Right.
I know a lot of people are skeptical about it.
Yes.
So how do you advise a new inventor who desperately wants to get this product out there and start, making money off his products, and at the same time being very careful that he does not fall victim to scam artists?
Sure. Now, I noticed you said quick return. So first, put that aside. There is no such thing as quick return.
No such thing as quick returns, I know, but a lot of inventors really want their products to do very well.
Yes, but everything is a long process. Everything takes longer than you expect. And the key is to be clever about it in the market and weigh all your options. So you would have to try all different methods to see which one is going to catch on. Because we've always heard of products that many stores have turned down, and suddenly one store will accept it, and then it's selling so well, then everybody else wants it. So it's really dependent on the personality of the inventor and how well they could sell their product to the purchasing agent if they want to go through the store route. For a new inventor, they have to be a salesperson. And if they're not a salesperson, and this is an important point, they have to partner with a salesperson. Just like Apple, right? You had Steve Jobs and Wozniak. Wozniak was the brains, and he built the computer. But if he didn't have Steve Jobs, you wouldn't be able to sell it. So if you cannot handle both tasks, and it's difficult to be both an engineer-minded person and a salesperson, because there are two different types of brains, then you need to work either hire or partner with someone that complements your skills so that you have a good group effort.
Now, in all your years dealing with inventors, new inventors especially, what are some of the challenges, the common challenges that you've noticed with inventors who come to seek your services to design a product?
Sure. The biggest challenge is budget. I work with whatever their budget is. So, for example, if an inventor has enough funding, then we could rapidly design and produce prototypes and go to mass production within 6 months to a year. But if they have a limited budget, then that's fine. I'm patient. I work with them, and that has been the biggest challenge. Is
Aside
time.
Funding, what are the challenges?
Well, the next level after funding is the level expectations they have of how fast that this is going to start producing profits. And if you heard from the Small Business Administration, most businesses are not profitable until 5 years after. So it takes generally 3 to 5 years to become profitable, because it takes a long time to build your structure, to build your branding, and to build a sales presence in the market. If you get lucky with some items and you're selling online, and even that is not just a quick return. We always hear how certain products are funded within a day on Kickstarter. Suddenly they raise $2 million.
That's every inventor's dream.
But in order to do that within a day, they spent a year or two marketing before it went on Kickstarter. And that's the part that you don't hear too often. So you really have to develop your audience, your customer base, and do the product development, product testing, and actually working with certain key individuals of your customer base, and have that email marketing base ready. So you need to have several thousand names already before you go on Kickstarter.
And they say a good product will always sell itself. Anyway.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
Why do you say so?
A good product sells if you have good selling techniques. So
word of mouth. Word of mouth can sell a product.
Yes, it can. It can, but you still need to have good sales techniques to start and spread that word of mouth. So there's certain products that may sell on its own, but nothing happens on its own.
Any final thoughts for inventors who want to, seek your services?
Yes. Well, we all know that in order to get something done, you have to be passionate about it. And that's very important. But at the same time, you have to be practical about it. So one of the values I bring to the design process is practical approach. A lot of inventors come to me with ideas, and I explain how, okay, this is the direction we need to go to actually make this happen in this time frame. Because if you don't have that much experience as a new inventor, you're coming to the meeting, to the table with preconceived ideas, and it's important to be open-minded, and also to have a practical approach, and that it's not going to be a perfect product right from the first release of it, and that we have to go through an evolutionary process.
A number of prototypes.
A number of prototypes, and even a number of generations of the final product. So most people, again, want a quick return. They want to design and manufacture something and sit back and enjoy, but it's an ongoing process. It's like raising a child. A product is always going to be changing. The market is always going to change, how they view the product. So you always have to improve, just like cars. And every year they release a new model. In order to entice the excitement in the customer base, you have to continue to improve and evolve the product based on the customer market.
Ara, it's been great speaking to you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. And if you are an aspiring inventor and would like more information on today's topic, please send an email to info@firstofitskind.com.